Here we go. Welcome to episode 3 of the podcast, Relationships Today. And on today, I have my friend Sean. I always want to say Shean, but Sean Danica Flanagan. Can you say hello to the people?
What's up, everyone? Hello. Super excited to be here. Funny enough, Kevin and I have been wanting to do this for forever, since we even had started both of our podcasts. So it's been a long time coming.
Yes, for sure, definitely. We have been wanting to collaborate, but speaking of that, you were just saying that last night that you were worried that today some of your vocabulary might be a little off because you were practicing some monologue.
I was basically had a very challenging monologue with a lot of use of like and profanity. So I'm gonna try my best to have the best vocabulary and grammar and punctuation as I possibly can, given that I stayed up till 3 and did that.
Okay, well, that's great. Don't worry, we'll let you off the hook today. I mean,
Good.
that was one thing we were talking about before you came on the podcast in our pre-call was that we are trying to be as organic as possible with this podcast, right? And so, um, people ask me like, what's the purpose? Why am I doing this? Is it like me trying to teach people about relationships? Obviously, it's called Relationships Today if you're just chiming in for the first time. Um, but I always say no, it's just about conversation. I want it to be organic and to be real, right? And so I'm not necessarily trying to give advice. Maybe some of my special guests might, but it's more about sparking the conversation and people thinking about things that maybe they didn't always think about, right? Does that make
Yeah.
sense? Yeah. So I'm gonna ask you to just quickly tell us a little bit about yourself, like in a short way, because you're like me, like you're involved in a lot of things, but like in a nutshell, kind of why are you choosing to do this podcast today, and what do you do in a sense,
Yeah.
like in an
Yeah.
easy
So
sense?
I'm a multifacet, basically multifaceted, like you, dimensional entrepreneur, in the sense that anything that I feel inspired to move towards, I activate. And so some of the primary environments that I am in is coaching. So I really support people in transformational coaching to take them from their process that they're currently in and help them get to where they want to go. And then the other dimension of me as a creator and an artist is creating conscious entertainment through something that I've coined as a rant-to-jam, which is basically a fusion art mixture between poetry, rap, ranting, as well as visual and rhythmic artistry, all clumped together.
That's a
And it's
mouthful.
fun. It's a mouthful, but
Yeah.
basically conscious entertainment and
Yeah.
transformative coaching. And they balance really fluidly. And I'm also a writer. So I just came out with my first poetry, prose, and illustration book, which is my transformative journey to help people kind of see themselves in my journey, and help them with their self-love and transformation.
Wow. Yeah,
Yeah.
so you do a lot. So at the end of the podcast, stay tuned because she's going to tell us where you can find her on the web and on social media and all that. But before that, we're going to dive into a couple things just to, be about the podcast because that's what we're on here for,
Yeah.
is about relationships. So as a segue into what we want to talk about today, you are like, now you're definitely like a creative beast. That's how I would describe you. And yeah, an entrepreneur. But before that, you made the transition from being a professional athlete. And
Yeah.
was that a difficult jump for you? Was that
No, this was like the slowest pour of molasses that's taken place. I basically retired from soccer at 19. I was playing over in Europe. I got to the top. I was playing with the first team. I had made the reserve team. And I was standing there going like, is this all there is? And that was ultimate failure for myself in that journey, in that I had this idea of what it was going to be like, and the world hadn't gotten to that platform yet. Female soccer isn't men's soccer, especially back in that time.
Yeah.
It's come a long way, but even then it's a very drastic gap between those two worlds. And so, you know, for myself, I went, well, I'm going to have to look inside and discover more about myself. And I ended up going into education. I took human kinetics and psychology. I learned a lot about myself. And then after being in school for like 6 years, on and off, I ended up leaving, and I started doing personal training. And then I realized, just with personal training and with my own journey, just how much we as individuals really want to grow and really want to transform our lives. And over time, from the time I was 19 to now I'm 31, I've grown so much, I can't even recognize that person. But along the way, I've taken my own application, my own experience, and I've shaped it into my own coaching program and lifestyle-based coaching program for health and mindset, to help people learn about their authentic self, learn how to create boundaries, learn how to create self-love, and to create their reality from the inside out rather than from the outside in.
That's big. That's really important. And so we're talking about relationships, which what you're talking about is really, we always say, is the relationship with yourself first, which I think is really, like, it's crucial, obviously foundational, and we tend to do it backwards. We don't do that work first before we enter into other relationships. But that's not the topic that we chose to talk on today, just so everybody knows. What we were going to talk about is sort of like masculine and feminine energy, which, you know, I thought about while you were talking about the soccer thing, and being how like women's soccer is not where men's soccer is and all that, like in your experience. But today, like in 2020, I find myself often saying to people that, you know, I think that, you know, we joke about the saying sometimes that the future is female. You know, you've probably heard that, right? Like, and
I'm ready for it.
and the women's movement has been so powerful. There's definitely been huge strides for sure. But in the context of relationships, I find myself as a man, I think that women are starting to lead the way a lot more. And I think it's really uncomfortable for men. So I'm hoping that I'll have a man come on the show so, you know, get a chance to talk about the male perspective. But from your side of things, because I think you would be considered probably like the more, like not the more, but like a dominant type person in a relationship, like your energy and your personality type and all that. So I don't know if it is that way in your current relationship or if it's impacted your previous relationships, but can you kind of like talk on that a little bit, like what it's been like?
Totally. Okay, so I'm very different than where I was at 19, and just even like 2 years ago, we're never the same person.
Right.
So for myself, when it comes to relationships and balancing the masculine and feminine energy, firstly, I always like to express and to say that men and women both harness masculine and feminine energies.
Agreed.
And then our society usually expresses them as they need to be separate, and that if you're a woman and you got a vagina, then you need to be female and you need to be feminine, and
Right.
then, you know, you kind of get ostracized from that masculine energy, or if you spend too much time in that, then you're, you know, everything that society tells you shouldn't be. Right. And same thing for men on the other side. And so, you know, for myself, I feel like I've shifted a lot in my own journey in relationships. I've had really great ones, and I've had ones that just became a total nightmare. And I think we all have felt that in some way in our lives. But ultimately, the biggest thing that I've always found is there's always a deeper underlying learning curve with the self relationship, our personal relationship with ourself, whether that's we need to look inside and develop more boundaries, more self-love, more acknowledgement, and more dignity for ourselves, just by kind of unfucking ourselves that word, from the societal beliefs and the things in our lives or in our past that have caused a significant amount of trauma or paralysis in us being authentically expressed in the world. So
okay, wait, pause. I'm going to pause you there. Just like, I was telling, for the listeners, I was telling her that before she came on the show that my challenge was going to be to try and keep her from going too deep. Because if you know her, if anybody's listening to this, you know that everything is deep with this woman, which is not bad. I'm just saying we only have 20 minutes. So I'm going to try and redirect her all the time. So on that topic, I guess, like on a basic level, I think people see it as like a masculine energy or feminine energy is like maybe the masculine we associate with being more decisive, maybe more the initiator, maybe, you know, that sort of thing, which could be stereotypical. And I also think that what I've heard a lot of and read a lot about is that women have had to adopt a more masculine energy in order to make it in the world today, like as far as you guys have in terms of, you know, like having a voice and having equal pay and those sorts of things and all that, rights and all that, right? So would you say on a basic level that is that how you would like kind of define, or how would you find, like, for you as a woman?
I would say I wouldn't even define it that narrowly, because I think that's what a lot of people in society have done, and it's created this corrupt way of understanding what masculine energy and what feminine energy really are, because we're all of that mixed in. It's just how we tune into it and utilize it. And specifically, to kind of get to what you were saying, is the masculine side in society, I have definitely felt like I've had to lean on that a lot. But the thing is when I was in sports, I did that as well. And I think sports naturally kind of brings out more of this tenacity and presence, in the sense of you have to really step in and own your space. But you can do that in a masculine energy and in a feminine energy. It's just how you're tuning into your own circuitry.
I think that's a new thing.
Business, yes.
Yeah.
You feel it. I've felt it so often. You know, if I've been in a room one-on-one with males, I have to kind of have this very masculine presence to drop out more of the feminine energy, because I felt very I've been looked at in a way that I didn't want to, and that wasn't professional if I was too soft,
right,
or if I was more in my feminine presence. And so I definitely, and I'm still learning how to balance that in a professional setting as well, to a degree, to honor myself. But that is a very real thing in the world still today.
Yeah, and I think my impression is that it's kind of a lose-lose for both of us, in a sense. Like, women who have to adopt that masculine energy, you know, like for because I do agree that we can't just like pigeonhole it or put it in a box and just say, to be masculine it looks like this and to be feminine looks like that.
Yeah.
That's detrimental in a lot of ways. But for a woman to have to step into something that maybe is not organic to them in certain settings, it's kind of a lose in a sense for you. It's unfair. And for a man to have to step in or embrace an energy that maybe is not natural to them, say a more feminine energy, because that's what they think they need to do in a relationship with a woman or in a parenting situation or whatever it is now in today's culture, men are losing too, I think, because often women don't even want to be with men that have too much of a feminine energy, right? It's
Yeah.
like, I feel like as a man, like often we're damned if we do, we're damned if we don't. If we're too masculine, then we're not sensitive or compassionate or blah blah blah. But if we're too feminine, then we're like, well, you need to be a man, you know what I mean, like kind of
Yeah.
thing. So I don't
Yeah.
know.
Well, so it's funny because the way that I see it, when we're in the presence of someone, the first conversation that happens is our energy.
Mm-hmm.
And so the first thing that we always are interacting with is the bonding of how we're showing up and stepping into either a masculine or a feminine energy or a blend in both of them. And that conversation directs the rest of what we do in our body language and what we verbally speak and how we kind of share connection, right? And so when we're kind of going and moving and operating out of these boxes of what we think we need to do in order to make something a fit, it's very inauthentic, and it breeds inauthenticity within that one core connection, and as well within society just as a whole, because children learn that from parents and from teachers and from other adults that are around them, that because they can feel it, right? We can feel energy right away, and we know whether it's authentic or inauthentic. And then usually what's happening in the play-by-play in that conversation is trying to find that angle, right?
Yeah.
And so it becomes this game, and that I think that's what in relationships can become so, that people lay that word out, toxicity, and I don't really like it at all, but it's used a lot in society. And I think that the toxicity is us not being able to do the work within ourselves to acknowledge this is how I'm showing up, and to really know the energy that we're expanding outward, and that the conversation that we're having with our energy fields, with people that we're in a room with or on a call with.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's important to acknowledge, because we are energy first, and that's the first conversation that happens. So really understanding, the things that you're learning, or the natural ways that you show up in situations in your masculine or feminine energy, helps you discover your triggers, and your pain or your weak points, that then transform into creating your reality within your personal and intimate relationships, as well as friendships and professional
Yeah.
business relationships.
Which is the ideal, like the hope is that people get to a point where we're doing that work, like, that inner work where we recognize those things. I don't know about you. Like, I know for me, sometimes I am conscious of what I'm kind of turning on or turning off when I'm entering certain situations. Do you find the same as a woman? I know you've already mentioned in a business standpoint. So let's go back to relationships. Like, let's say I know you're in a committed, like, dating relationship, whatever you want to call it,
Yeah.
with also also another very creative person.
Yeah.
So I don't know how that plays out in that situation, or your previous relationships. Like, did you find that you had to be conscious, or that it hurt or helped you in certain situations when you're dating, or
To just recognize what energy I'm stepping into.
yeah, or
Oh,
choosing
100%. Oh, 100%.
yeah.
When disagreements come up, it's like professional Sean just has to go over to left field. Otherwise there's no relationship. Because man, I'm gonna come down really, really hard.
Yeah.
I'm definitely I'm a tough firecracker. I'm not gonna lie. I feel like there's always been that in my dynamic, in my personality, even before, but now more than ever, like I really own who I am with conviction.
Yeah.
And so, if there's something that needs to be said, or something that needs to be changed or done, I bring it up. And finding that balance of showing up in my feminine presence can be really, really challenging, because there's also that switch that goes on that goes, well, I can fix this, or I can do this, or I can make a difference here, or we can transform this. And that is definitely more of my professional and my creative thinking cap, which is a beautiful thing. But if I'm not in the right mindset, if I'm coming from an angle that isn't from that pure base feminine, or that loving presence of that intimate relationship, the other person feels it.
Yeah, for sure.
And then I'm caught, and so learning that is really important in your relationship, learning how, and thinking, and feeling more than anything, how am I showing up? How am I showing up for myself in my own energy? And what is that energy sending out? When someone is in my presence, what am I thinking and feeling that they're going to naturally start to feel? And that's so important. So being really intentional with, if you're walking into a situation for disagreements or needing things to change, it's important to go in there from a perspective of love rather than fear, especially when, if you're a little bit more of a type A, that can come across as massive, aggressive, kind of
sure
coming down on someone, coming down real hard. I've never done that, I swear. No, I've learned a lot, let me tell you. And a lot of what I share is based on experience, because I've lived it. And I'm not perfect. None of us are. We're going through this, lovely life and journey, learning our way through it. And so having compassion for ourselves, having compassion for other people, is really what you need to have going into any situation.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, compassion, yeah, it can be tough for some of us. But so you made me think of two things there while you were talking. One is that the the energy that we show up with. So the word energy, without getting into it, I think some people kind of get spooked by that, or they're like, they think it's a fad word or whatever. So I just want to clarify for listeners or viewers that wherever you stand on that whole thing, because for some people it's a spiritual dilemma. When in this context, I want to suggest that we consider it that a lot of our communication is not always verbal. And so if we can agree on that, then where you stand on the whole energy topic doesn't really matter, because how we show up in any situation, it doesn't always have to do with words. I think we can agree with that, right? And so like what you were saying, so
well, intuitively, we always know when something feels authentic or something feels slightly off, or we don't quite trust something.
Yeah.
And that's our intuition coming through. And that's what I'm talking about.
And sometimes it's body language. It could be,
all those things.
Yeah, for sure. And so the other thing that came to my mind was that the other day, I actually went on a date for the first time in a long time. Like, because most people know I'm single. Again, I was married before. Everybody knows that, a long time ago, because I have kids and all that. But so one of my daughters was working at the place where I went on this like date. Like, I was just getting to know somebody. It was the first time that we got together and shared a glass of wine. But anyway, so the point is that my daughter saw me in this interaction. She couldn't hear anything that we were saying, but she could see me, and she said afterwards, she said, "Oh my gosh, you're so funny." She's like, the way you were looking at that person, she's like, I never see you look like that. Like, she's like, just like your body language and like you're like staring into her soul and all that stuff. I was like, wow. I was like, well, I was trying to get to know her. It was a totally different dynamic than what my kids are used to. so yeah. Yeah. So for anybody out there listening, if I ever stared into your soul without you knowing it, it's not a bad thing.
It can't be that bad. It's a good thing.
Yeah, for sure.
You're right to the point. You might as well.
Yeah. So anyway, this topic, I think it's a big topic. It touches on so many different things, right? And I'm trying to avoid us getting into like, because a lot of people have really strong beliefs on, where they stand with like gender roles and things like energy and all that kind of stuff. And I don't want to dive into that because those are all discussions in their own. Today, I think that you've done a good job, kind of like what it's been like for you as a woman, and having to kind of navigate that. I'm hoping that some men, like I said, I'm hoping people will comment and share whatever. And I'm hoping that in the future I can have some men talk about what it's like, because I really feel like men are struggling in this area. Um, it's not black and white anymore, what it looks like to be a man, like in terms of how we show up, in the world, because the women's movement has changed so much, and there's a lot of good in that, but it's created a new dynamic, right?
Totally. I think number one thing, I think definitely, and I say this, as a woman and to every woman, owning your voice and just really laying everything out on the line as clearly as you can is so important from the get-go in any relationship. Like what you're open to, whether it's, you're on a date or whether it's a professional setting. In my experience, I haven't had the best experience in that world all the time. I've laid it out on the line in hard masculine energy and form, and still had people come at me and look at me as a prospective girlfriend or someone that they want to have and they want to keep. And that is it's not okay. And it's very, very challenging. It's so challenging to evolve in business. It's challenging to evolve as a woman to trust in that section, and feel really safe and feel heard more than anything, that people respect and abide by what you're saying. And it kind of felt like for a long time, and I still experience it today. It feels like a game for men on the other side, and not all men have done this, but I've definitely experienced it, and it's really hard. And I'm sure that men have experienced this too. And so what I would say to that is owning your voice, laying it out on the line, and if people aren't willing to respect that, they don't respect you. So you have to walk away completely from that.
Yeah, and I definitely think it's becoming, like, because of the shift in our culture, I can say from experience that men are starting to experience it from the other end, like, well, women are taking that role on, where, and so without getting into that, or sharing my experience, maybe another podcast.
Yeah.
But it's definitely, it's, the world is different, as we know right now, and so navigating that, I want to say, men, don't be afraid to look into it. And if you need, give me a shout. This is not it's not something that's new. It's not old, but it's been coming for a while, that, men, it's different for us right now in the world, and especially to have or keep relationships. Women, same thing. I think, women are on the rise, and women are on fire right now. And, I would say my caution as a dad of daughters too is, like, to just maybe not take that too far to the extreme, where you kind of throw out everything else that is good about being feminine in the pursuit of dominating, like being successful and winning, you know what I mean? Like, because I think we need both. I believe we need both. Like,
We need both. We need equality, and we need equal communication. And I think that no matter whether you're a man or a woman, being able to listen to what someone says to you and honor that and truly respect it, from a place of, like, real respect, and I think that's the only way that we can really move forward and move out of the paradigm that was created, and start transforming into something new, evolved, conscious, and that is definitely bringing the equality together amongst men and women, and the energies that are harnessed in all of us.
Yeah, I agree. So, because we're gonna wind down now, we're getting close to the end. That time flies with, my podcast seemed pretty short. I'm gonna probably jump on her platform at some point, but we might be talking about other things. So maybe you'll come back and we'll talk more about this kind of stuff another time. But I want to say, I think that even though we talked about a lot of different topics, a couple gems that I would pull out of our conversation today was that no matter where you stand on the concept of energy or male female roles and what that looks like and all that, authenticity is key. And that begins with knowing who you are and exploring who you are, and then finding a way to translate that in certain situations. Does that sound like a good summary?
I think that's a great summary. Yeah, I think the only things that I would add to that is the first relationship that you'll ever have is with yourself, and becoming very aware of how you operate within yourself and balance the masculine and feminine in you is an important factor of how you're showing up in any conversation, in any relationship that you have, personal or professional, and just acknowledging that and looking at where you can look and reflect and make some shifts for the greater good of all in that dynamic. Yeah.
And I've definitely found the evolution and the struggle in my own life. Like even just as a dad, I would look at that and say that my traditional stereotypical masculine energy was really, really dominant when I was younger, and I was a young dad, and I was like very authoritarian. I was, like a lot of the things, unfortunately, I mean, the masculine energy shouldn't just be seen as negative things or hard things,
It's not. It's a great energy, and so is the feminine. It's just how we use it, and how we choose to use our energy to affect other people as well, and whether we're conscious about how we're actually affecting another person based on how much of that energy and how we're using it. Specifically, how the energy itself, masculine or feminine, isn't bad or anything like that. It's how we transmute it into what we speak and what we actively do, and or the way that we choose to go about things. And so it's becoming very self-aware of how we're showing up for ourselves, how we're showing up for other people, and then doing our due diligence to ask, where can I grow? Where can I shift? How can I be better? Not just for myself, but for the greater good of all, for the greater good of my intimate relationship, for the greater good of my friendships, my professional settings. How can I show up, be more authentic, feel fully expressed, and also give that same level of respect and love to another person to be able to receive on an equal basis.
Yeah.
From an equality platform. Share the love, people. Share the love.
Share the love. So yeah, I mean, and that's been the growth for me, has been like shifting towards like more compassion, more understanding. And so I think that the goal is that both masculine and feminine have great qualities, the energies, and we need them both. And they hopefully we just strive for great qualities in general. I mean,
character development.
Yeah. And I mean, there is definitely, again, another topic probably for another podcast. A lot of research that is clear that men and women, we are built and wired a little differently, like how our brains function, how our hormones function, like things like that. And so, as much as people would like to say, oh, well, there's not a difference between men and women, there is, but we need to look deeper into that, what that means, like, and not just be like, oh, well, because this is how the media portrays a man, or this is how a woman should look, or whatever, so we need to dig deeper. Right. And so let's dig deeper, people. Let's dig deeper and let's share the love. And before we sign off, I promise I want you to tell people where to find you. So why don't you tell us?
Yes, you can find me at thebusinessofyou.com, and I will share some of my details. Hopefully a link or a pop-up will show up below where you can reach me at. So if you're wanting to check out the book or have a conversation with me or learn more about how to transform, you can find me at thebusinessofyou.com and or at Sean D. Flanagan on Instagram or The Business of You. I have both those channels open that you can connect with me one-on-one.
Awesome. It's so great to have you on. I will definitely try and post those links for sure for people. I want to encourage everybody to subscribe. Check out, this podcast is a jump off of my book, Chocolate Covered French Fries. The link is also in my description for the podcast. You can find me on social media at kevin.kishor. And Instagram is the best, I think, but I'm also on Facebook. So thanks again, everybody, for listening. Please share with people. Hopefully you got something out of this, and stay connected with us. If you're looking for coaching, if you're looking for personal coaching, mindset stuff, and all that Sean said that she offers, definitely look her up. Looking for relationships coaching, definitely hit me up. And hope we'll talk to you all soon, and that you guys continue to share the love and dig deeper. Thanks for listening today. All right. Thanks,
Thank you so
Sean.
much for having me, Kevin. I appreciate it. Thank you guys for watching and listening. Have a beautiful day. Thank you so
Signing
much.
up. Bye.